completed a seminar on the biblical book of Exodus with a group of scholars in Miami. And that's available on the Daily Wire Plus platform, the first 8 of those, and the last 9 will be released very soon. And one of the things we talked about, given that we were discussing the book of Exodus, was the nature and the meaning of the 10 commandments. And one of the most mysterious commandments, but also one that I think is incredibly germane at the moment, is do not take the Lord's name in vain. Now, skeptics listening might say, why in the world are we talking about such arcane matters? But the reason we are is because I think you can make a very strong case that the commandments constitute part of the set of implicit and explicit a priori axioms that govern the polity of free Western states. And in any case, they're elementary moral rules. That's one way of thinking about it. Do not murder, for example. That seems, reasonable. Do not envy what your neighbor has. So no covetousness, which would be a good thing for envious people to contemplate for a very long period of time. But this do not take the Lord's name in vain is a very interesting one, because people generally think that means don't swear. Don't say God damn or something like that. And that isn't what it means. What it means is do not assign holy motivations to things you're doing for your own nefarious purposes. That's what it means. And I think that's the cardinal sin of our time. And that's what people do when they claim unearned moral virtue. So moral virtue is very hard to establish. And you can take it out of the religious domain and say that your moral virtue is actually the same as your social reputation. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but if you're a good person and you act productively and generously and reciprocally, then you get a reputation for doing so, and that reputation is of incredible value. It means people will trade with you, they'll interact with you, they'll trust you. It means that if you run a business, that your customers regard you as reliable and will spread your name around in a positive way. And that's brand value fundamentally, and every business person knows how integrally important to their economic success brand value is. That's earned moral virtue. Unearned moral virtue is what you attempt to garner if you're narcissistic, psychopathic, Machiavellian, and sadistic, and that's the dark tetrad group of personality traits. And what I see happening continually on the political front at the moment, and I would say this is particularly the case on the left, is that there's a battle for the acquisition of as much unearned moral virtue as possible. And I think that's what's happening in this situation, is that we can collapse the situation in Russia, Ukraine into this simple narrative, which you just described, which is, heroic Ukrainians embattled by demonic tyrant, supported by equally heroic allies, those being the, shallowly pro-war Westerners. And that's a good distraction from more serious issues. You mentioned the fentanyl crisis, and that's only one of many things that we might be attending to carefully if we were wise. And it also enables everyone to stand up and wave flags and be heroic and virtuous without doing one bit of the effort necessary to actually undertake that in their life. And I think that is a compelling motivation for the acceptance of these 3-pixel narratives. And that just seems to be happening continually. And so we're walking ourselves ever more blindly towards an incalculable abyss, proclaiming all the way that we're only doing what good people would be doing, because after all, we're the good people and we have, nobility, democracy, and God on our side. So what do you think about that? Well, you're a religious man, you're a metaphysical thinker to some degree. What do you think about that as a set of metaphysical presumptions? Do you think that bears any relationship to our current